Welcome back to our second panel on hitting. This time we're really focusing on the swing metrics before and after contact, and we have three great speakers that I will introduce to you now. We have Andrew Eit, hitting manager at Driveline Baseball, Bobby Tewksbury, CEO of Pelotero and a independent guru, and Matt Lyle, the founder of the Hitting Vault and a professional hitting coach with the Chicago White Sox a couple years ago, and many other places along the way. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me, and we'll jump right into it. Andrew's our leadoff hitter with a few remarks for everybody.
How's it going, everybody? Like Joe said, Andrew, I'm hitting manager for Driveline. And so my quick topic to get things started is going to be on more of the speed-related metrics for bat sensors leading up to contact. So if we just want to hop in. So at Driveline, we believe the most impactful and trainable parts of hitting currently are our big three. So that's bat speed, bat to ball skills, and swing decisions or plate discipline. So the way we look at this, and the way one of our analysts said it best, Noah Thurm, shout out to you. Hitters' bat speed sets their ceiling and their floor, and then their smash factor and the swing decisions determine where they're going to live in between the two. So this is why the majority of hitters should be training the skill and bat speed, and that's why also they get the most bang for their buck when it comes to training economy. So let's kind of get into more of what bat speed is and kind of like how we can train that. So bat speed is how fast the barrel of the bat is moving through space. So the two most common bat sensors on the market are blast motion and diamond kinetics. These sensors will measure things a little differently. Blast measures it at impact or contact, and diamond kinetics measures it at the fastest point in the swing. So through our research at Driveline and also other people in the baseball community, it's proven that of any metrics, bat speed has the highest impact on performance. So our research shows that bat speed will actually improve a hitter's Wobicon, or a weighted on-base average of contact on balls in plays, by 139 points compared to people with slower bat speed, and then on balls that are squared up to 213 points. So you can see that's a huge impact on just how much a hitter can produce for his team, how much he can get on base. I believe most of us can agree that hitting the ball harder is better. We've found that bat speed has the highest correlation to exit velocity, or how hard the ball is hit. So for every mile per hour bat speed, it results in roughly 1.2 miles per hour in exit velocity. So it also has a negative correlation to time to contact, which is a great thing. So as you see, the bat is moving faster. We'll see time to contact, and basically the length of the swing is going down. And so we'll get into a little bit later, kind of like why that is so important, as I'm going to talk about time to contact and also rotational acceleration today as well. So one thing to keep in mind when using a bat sensor is that many metrics are influenced and dependent on point of contact. So this is true for bat speed. So if you're using blast, since it is measured at contact, the farther out in front that you make contact, the higher the bat speed, and the deeper that you make contact, the lower the bat speed is going to be relative to the player. So this is very important to take a note of and keep in mind whenever you're training and focusing on bat speed. For time to contact, this is the amount of time from first move, or when the hitter's hands commit, to contact. So you can think of this as the amount of time it takes like a car to finish a race, or how long or short a hitter's swing is. Blast measures this from when the bat speed starts moving towards the ball, and diamond kinetics measures this when the swing reaches roughly 10% of max acceleration. So why is this important? Unlike golf, there's a time constraint for hitters in baseball. So when we were trying to create speed and create bat speed, we don't want to do this just by increasing length, increasing time that you're swinging. So we want to do this with the correct movements, just try to create as much speed in the shortest amount of time as possible. So this is why hitters can get away with more during tee work and kind of lower game-like environments. But as soon as you go to flips and the ball begins moving, there's now a time constraint on the hitter. So the average pitch takes roughly 400 milliseconds to get to the plate. The average swing is about 150 milliseconds, and the hitter has roughly the same amount of time to make a decision once the brain is processed what the pitch is doing. So that's why it's so key to be able to shorten the length of the swing, because that's essentially giving us more time as hitters to make a decision. And so it's not only giving us more time, but it's allowing us to take in more information because we can make that decision later. So we can let the ball get deeper or closer to the plate before we have to actually commit our swing to the ball. So rotational acceleration is how quickly a hitter gets into rotation or into the swing plane. Blast measures this from first move, or when the hands commit forward, to when the hitter is on plane. So you can think of this as the hitter's 0 to 60 time. So a sedan and a sports car can both go 60 miles per hour, but the sports car is going to get there much quicker. In this example, the 60 mile per hour mark is like the swing plane. So this is very important because we have found hitters with higher rotational acceleration have better swing depth and have more consistent exit velocities at various points of contact. So they have a wider margin of error and don't have to be perfectly on time necessarily to have like a good result or hit the ball just as hard. We've also found this is very correlated to sequencing. So basically that is the order that the body fires in. So if you look at the visual that has like the different segments of the body, we want to see a 1, 2, 3, 4 sequence between the hips, the torso, the arms, and then the hand. So this is the most efficient way to transfer energy and to rotate faster. And this is why having efficient mechanics and moving like well is so important. So rotational acceleration is also tied to hand speed and time to contact. So if you have hands, you should be able to if you have fast hands, you should be able to get on plane quicker. And if you're rotating well or getting on plane quickly, your swing should be shorter as well. So just getting a little more specific on training all of these, or all three. My biggest advice is to set up a system to test and retest, like in a little bit more of a game-like environment using a bat sensor. So using blast or diamond kinetics. You have probably noticed that all these metrics so far, with bat sensors can be dependent on point of contact. And they can also measure a little bit differently. So one key thing is to like pick either blast or diamond kinetics for like if you're testing and retesting, and stick to those over time instead of like comparing like 1-to-1, as we will see differences from blast bat speed to diamond kinetics bat speed, things like that. Also, when it comes to instant feedback, this is one of the best ways to get hitters better. So setting up a bat sensor that is visible like a display to the hitter, whether that's your phone, iPad, or a TV, being able to take that in the cage or next to the cage is crucial for the hitter. So what you can do is have that visible to the hitter, and then after each swing, they can see it, and then it'll pop up live of like what the metrics were. So you can give a hitter a specific focus of bat speed or time to contact, these other things, and they can begin to like associate the feels to like the good result. So they can feel like on this swing, my bat speed was higher. Like, what did I feel there? Like what movement was a little bit different there, and things like that. Also, it's great to set goals to push hitters. So whether that is bat speed for the day, the month, or like next time you retest, it's great to like pair this with instant feedback. So for example, if I was in a cage with a hitter, you can give, this is a round of 10, you can give a goal of having 7 of the 10 swings be above 70 miles per hour, or whatever is closer to like the goal or where you're trying to get the hitter to. This really helps them narrow their focus and kind of many times compare with the external focus. So they're not always thinking specifically on, my back elbow or my knee or something like that. And they're focused more on the outcome of the swing. So a great tool and implement for training these things as well is weighted bats or overload and underload bats. So these are tremendous for training everything talked about so far. So being strong or powerful allows hitters to get away with more. And these bats are basically strength training for their swing. So they allow us to apply resistance training to our sport's like most specific skill. And then lastly, and usually the favorite, are hitting drills. I'm sure we'll get into more of these later in the talk. But drills that allow a hitter to be more athletic, move more efficiently, or move faster are great for these metrics. So like the golden area in the environment we're constantly creating for hitters at driveline is to combine all of these things. So we're constantly giving a hitter a drill combined with a training bat, and then also with instant feedback as well. So we'll put them in a specific position with the drill. We'll use an implement or a bat that's going to help them with that movement. And then but their focus is going to be on the instant feedback that is provided from Blast or Diamond Kinetics or Hit Tracks or whatever piece of tech that's going to like help them make quicker adjustments for what we're working on. And so kind of wrap this up, if you take anything away from this quick intro talk, it should be to create as much speed as possible to hit the ball hard, but doing so with the correct movements to do it in the shortest amount of time possible. And also the quicker you can get on plane, the longer you can stay on it and through the baseball. So thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew. Perfect start laying out a lot of the terms and concepts we'll be talking about. And now over to you, Bobby.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for putting this whole event on. Pleasure to be a part of it. My talk is going to be kind of more big picture. The framework that I'm working with is capacity, capability, and performance. So looking at hitting and a lot of what Bleak and Rick were talking about in the previous sessions, funny how much they talked about the metrics as they got deeper into it. And we're going to end up talking about biomechanics because everything's kind of tied together. So it's just you can't look at one piece without looking at the other piece. There's so many layers to this. It's just really challenging. So in terms of this capacity, capability, and performance framework, the context for everything, I believe, should be tied back to performance of actual, like, does it work? Is the hitter performing in the game? So if we look at something like capacity, a metric like bat speed, that's just a raw number. You could throw on a bat sensor, it's going to spit it out. Doesn't mean you can hit good. It's just a number that exists in the world. Capability would then be converting that into exit velocity. Can you make quality contact with the ball? Can you translate your capacity into capability? And then ultimately, can you get it done in the game? Is the performance hitting the ball hard in the game when it matters? So when we look at the context of what this data all means, I think there's a few different ways you can look at the context. So are we looking at the number saying, is this good or bad? Is it just an assessment of like, all right, your bat speed is 65. That's good or that's bad? It's very limited scope. It doesn't really tell you too much. Can we look at context in relation to the actual performance? So as Andrew just said, we can look at swing sequence. We see a bunch of hitters with poor swing sequences that can hit good. And we see guys with really, really good swing sequences that cannot hit. I always like to talk about hip speed because people assume hit speed should be faster. The kids that I've trained, the ones that hit the ball the hardest have the lowest hip speed. So like, what are we talking about? What's actually going on there? And then to go back to the time to impact, if we don't understand what the pitch was or what the hitter's timing was, I might want a really long, I want to see a hitter with a range of time to impact where they can hit the ball hard, not just like, oh, you have a short swing. Like, you're not going to get your A swing off every single time. So can I extend my swing? Can I keep the barrel in the zone for a long time? Can I hit when I'm bad? How high is my floor? That type of thing. And then context in relation to other metrics. Rick was asked in the previous session about grip strength. I've never had a hitter hit the ball over 100 miles per hour without gripping at least 125 on those. Just, you can get the cheap Amazon, $20 test a hitter's grip strength. I can grip like 140, 150, but I can't hit the ball 100 because I'm old and fat now and I just can't do it. So grip strength alone doesn't tell the story, but it's a piece of the puzzle that can be important to track. But it's like getting on a scale to measure your weight. Like, if you don't know what your caloric intake is, if you don't know what the goal is to gain more weight or to lose weight, if you don't have any context, you can't provide any information that's relevant to that person. So data is being used for benchmarking. It's being used for comparisons. It's being used to create reports. What we don't see I've founded a company called Pelotero. We started building software last January. And what we've tried to do is understand, like, are we actually defining if the hitter's good? Like, are they an actual good hitter? And there's some danger with metrics because it's easier to control the numbers in terms of capacity and capability than it is performance. So you can get a hitter in the cage, and I see this with throwing velocity. Like, you can make somebody throw harder, but are they getting more people out? It all has to be tied to the performance. And throwing harder, is there a correlation to getting people out? Sure, it is, but as Bleecker was saying, and Rick was talking about in the previous session, there's guys that are improving their movement quality that are not improving their performance, getting stronger, not getting better. So there's no guarantee that if you improve your capacity or your capability that it's going to actually translate. So there's deeper layers and there's deeper connections that need to be made. The context is just critical. So what we're really trying to do is tell the deeper story of each player, of the hitters, what they're actually capable of, what do they need to spend their time on. We're really focused on creating custom programs as fast as possible for players. We're not doing bucketing. We're like anti-reports, like, because they just make you work harder. So why are we doing that? From a swing mechanic standpoint, because I consider swing mechanics and some of the things that are going on with the body to be pre-contact, this is all going to get automated. It's like we're close to it on our own and other people are working on it. I know, like, video analysis it's still going to be valuable and you can do it. It's just going to be unnecessary moving forward. The goal we have with looking at swing mechanics is for us to be able to tell a player, like, look, your capacity and capability is good. Your body's achieving the right positions. Your movements are good. Stop worrying about it, because so many kids are getting hyper focused on mechanics and they get stuck and they're focusing on the wrong things. And they just need to worry about getting in the cage and hitting line drives. Like, they need to just focus on hitting. And they think improving their swing is going to make them a better hitter. And there's so much more to it. And they need to focus on those other things. So to be able to tell a player, like, look, you're good. Stop hyper focusing on your mechanics. Let's think about hitting, like, control the baseball. And then from a hitting standpoint, what we see happening is the metrics that are created require knowledge. And coaches over the last 10 years, as sports tech has emerged, feel like we skipped a step with all of this stuff, where a bunch of really smart people were creating numbers that then the coaches had to figure out what they meant to translate it to the players. So there's this huge learning curve. It's the disconnect between the old school and the new school. I think that's where that exists. And what we're doing is we're shifting away from metrics to feedback. And Lauren, if you could pull up my screen share, I just want to do a quick demo of. So our first product is with HitTrax, and we're wrapping up beta right now. But this is just a quick example of what we're doing, where a player can do a custom assessment in about 15 minutes, build a program in seconds, and then this is just a demo of what that experience looks like. So as the batted ball is being performed, we're providing metrics on screen, live, real time. And if a player is popping up too much, they're going to get a lower launch angle for a goal. If they're hooking the ball or getting around it too much, they're going to be asked to hit the ball oppo. It's a fully customized with feedback, and it's starting to train the players' ability to adjust, the behavior change. They stop trying to hit the ball as far as they can and as hard as they can, and they start focusing on hitting. So we've got the different metrics, and I'm just using keyboard shortcuts. And right here, we can see this player, the goal is to hit the ball between 5 and 20 with a direction of 10 to 30, where 0 is center field, right field is 45. So you can see this big go zone over here. And then we have a college player performing the program. And it's just amazing to see the data being translated immediately. So this kid, pitch selection becomes a factor now because he's supposed to hit the ball in the middle of the field. So he's competing against himself. This is a really good rep, driving the ball in the middle of the field. We can see they got the thumbs up right away. It's just immediate. And then the next two, he's going to get around. So that's bad rep. Still hit the ball hard, but now he's got to hit the ball to the correct part of the field. And then this last one is just a blatant rollover. And he steps out and he's mad. And he should be, because it was a bad rep. So that's the big story on what we're doing, and kind of shifting from numbers to action and making it happen quickly, removing the stress from coaches' lives. And, you shouldn't be trying to merge CSV files and doing a bunch of stuff in Google Sheets, and it's got to be easier. And that's where we're focused. So.
That's great. And I think you just titled my hitting memoir, Blatant Rollover. But that's great, Bobby. Now we're over to Matt.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it being here and being asked to do this, and some great hitting guys on here, Andrew and Bobby. And I think today, I hope that everyone gets for my talk today, I'm actually going to tie a lot of what Andrew's talking about and Bobby, and my talk today is about context in hitting. And so for me, today I want to spend a few minutes just talking about guys. There's a couple of swing metrics out there, and if they're only viewed in a vacuum without context, a lot of people are just checking off the box of good swing metrics without actually improving their hitting. So, and how important context is to hitting in everything. So the first thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is attack angle. And I think everyone is kind of familiar enough with the term attack angle, especially if you've used a bat sensor like blast motion. And so kind of just as a recap, attack angle is the angle of the bat at impact relative to horizontal. So a positive value indicates swinging up, a negative value indicates swinging down, where 0 is perfectly level. And this is an oldie but a goodie graphic from an old Ted Williams book on hitting, and just kind of giving you an idea of what it looks like to have this positive attack angle or a negative attack angle a little bit, and just kind of simplifies it a little bit. And I think this, kind of a recap of that is just that this graphic shows that being on plane with the pitch or having an attack angle that's matching the incoming pitch has benefits. And the longer the barrel is in the zone, the wider margin of error, it allows the hitter to be more consistent. And so when you hear a coach say, get on plane or match the plane of the pitch, what they're talking about is, virtually all pitches are coming down at a downward angle, right? So let's just say the average pitch is 10 degrees, but sometimes they're 4 degrees. Some curveballs are, 20 degrees coming in. So when we talk about getting on plane or matching the plane of the swing, attack angle is kind of a simplified way of saying that we're trying to kind of match that angle. And so that's kind of an idea right there. And when I really want to talk about today is about context and understanding that with almost all hitting metrics, context has to be taken into account. So there's a pizza slice here, and this pizza slice takes on a whole new identity based on its environment, right? And so it's not so appealing when it's lying on a sewer drain, right? But similarly, when we look at hitting metrics in a vacuum, we don't always get the whole picture, whether they're actually a good hitter or if that swing metric actually correlates to them being a good hitter, right? And so context matters, and I think it's really important to understand that. The next thing I want to talk about a little bit is just when it comes to attack angle, some of the context that really helps is understanding timing. So we're talking about attack angle, and timing and vertical bat angle are really important to the context of attack angle. So here you can see on this slide, the pitch is the blue line. So the pitch is coming in on a blue line. And if you look, you'll see that kind of that angle. And this pitch is just an average, 10 degree coming in pitch. And it's obviously a very 2D image, but again, trying to simplify it. So you got this pitch coming in on this blue line, and you've got the bat on the red line. And so if you look at the very top right there, this was a graphic made by Alan Nathan. I kind of changed it around a little bit, but if you've got it, we're talking about a negative attack angle. And so if you're late on this pitch with a negative attack angle, you're going to hit the very top of the ball and have a result that is not probably ideal. And then if you're on time, you square up that ball, depending on the spin and a lot of other things, and the vertical bat angle, that ball is still going to be squared up. It could be a hard ground ball. It could be a lot of things. And if you're early, the bat, you making contact way out front, you might pop this thing up or something like that. And again, the same thing with a attack angle of 4 to 12 degrees. It's a little bit more angle. You're gonna see right there, this hitter barrels up this ball a lot more than a negative attack angle. But again, without vertical bat angle timing, there's a lot of things that come into play with spin direction, swing direction. And then again, if you have someone who's got a really steep attack angle, they're 15 plus attack angle, 20, you see some of these hitters with this 20 degree attack angle. Again, based on whether they're late, on time, or early, you're going to get these different different results. And so attack angle, like Bobby's talking about a little bit, is it's important. I think it's a good metric to look at when we're looking at someone's swing. But again, it doesn't equal being a good hitter. It doesn't mean they're on time, they're barreling up pitches. There's just so many other things that come into play with attack angle. So I just want to kind of be everyone to see there, just in a basic 2D model of a flat vertical bat angle, how just those two things, attack angle and timing, can really change what type of contact you're making, spin direction, direction of swing, and a bunch of other things. So it's really important to understand that. The next thing I want to talk about is like vertical bat angle. I kind of touched on that a little bit, and I want you guys to understand a little bit how, again, we talked about attack angle, we talked about timing. So if you look at the graphic on the left, you're going to see where contact is made is a vertical bat angle of like 0. And so vertical bat angle, just so are you clear, is it measures the degrees and location of the barrel to the knob. So if you look at that top left image, you're going to see like this flat swing plane and a vertical bat angle that's basically 0. And if you look at the bottom one, you've got like this huge vertical bat angle. It's much higher. And so, but what I want you to see here, and this was a video done by Evan Reisel and did a really good job with Justin Stone too, is when you're looking at this vertical bat angle on the right video, Justin Stone kind of shows you like that's a vertical bat angle that is 90 degrees, super flat, and then he shows you again kind of almost like a 0 degree vertical bat angle. And so, what I think is really important to understand, like we talk about attack angle, we talk about timing, is that, when it comes to vertical bat angle, bats flatter in the zone produce a surface area that is kind of more exposed to miss hits. So if you look at the image in the top left, and you see that kind of video of Justin, if we come in with this very flat vertical bat angle, if we miss hit the ball a little bit underneath or on top, like these balls are getting put in play, and they're getting play whether a ground ball or a pop up, and they're a miss hit that's a fair ball. Where the more vertical our bat angle is, our miss hits are usually foul balls. And so, at the higher levels, especially when we're talking about miss hits, most major leaguers would prefer to foul a ball off versus a pop up in the infield or a ground ball. And so vertical bat angle is another kind of just piece of the puzzle or a piece of the context when understanding what these metrics mean and the context of them. So, we can be on time with a good attack angle, and our vertical attack angle can be off just a little bit, and we miss hit the ball. So, this is why Bobby and Andrew, myself, this is why we do this. Baseball is fun because it's literally a game of millimeters, and it's literally a game of these little things and spin rate. We're talking about all these things, the pitchers are doing and hitting is happening. It's literally a game of just a little bit and all these different puzzles we're all trying to solve. And so, and I think it's really important to understand that each hitter is different as well. We need to find the happy medium of where do we do the most damage consistently. And when it comes to things like attack angle and vertical bat angle, these things are different for every person. I think if Bobby and I get in the cages, let's say Bobby hits the ball, I'm a little fatter and chubbier than him, so maybe he hits the ball a little further than I do with a little more exit velocity. And I tell my college guys all the time, if the fence at your college is 330 feet and you consistently hit balls 340 feet, that's going to be a different swing plane maybe than if you consistently hit the ball 315. Because, again, it depends on the hitter and what they can do. And so when it comes to context, it's really important for parents, if you're a parent or a high school parent or coach, to understand that everybody is wired differently, built differently, and everybody's swing metrics may not be the same. And if we're just checking the boxes of like, ooh, this is a good vertical bat angle, ooh, this is a good attack angle, and we start wondering, why is this hitter not becoming a better hitter? It's one of the reasons and things that we're trying to figure out, like, hey, maybe this is not the most important piece of the puzzle for this hitter. Maybe it's just a really small piece of the puzzle. And so, and a perfect example of this to me is Joey Votto. Like, Joey Votto has one of the highest vertical bat angles in the major leagues. And like on middle in pitches or middle up pitches, like he's in the mid 30s of vertical bat angle. And on low pitches, like he's in the 40s. Like he's got a very, he's on the end of the spectrum of like a high vertical bat angle. So what does that mean? And for Joey Votto, what that means is, like, it took him until April of 2019, and I wrote down 6,828th at bat before he popped up in the infield for the first time in his career. So, now obviously there's a lot more context to Joey Votto, but like understanding his vertical bat angle and why he had took him over 6,800 at bats for him to pop it in the infield. To me, like, vertical bat angle can be a piece of that puzzle. And it could be something that says, okay, because most of his mishits are foul balls versus these pop-ups, like for Joey Votto, that could be something that provided success for him, and understanding that his vertical bat angle has helped him in his career. And again, I think there's a ton of other things that are involved in that. But for this talk, I just want to really reiterate to parents and coaches and anyone listening that metrics are awesome. I love metrics. I'm a huge nerd. But understanding that when it comes to all of them, their context is really, really important. And so I'm just going to wrap up with this, is that there are a lot of things that come into play with how we accomplish ideal metrics and consistent, powerful contact, with understanding how the body works efficiently. Rick and Blake talked a little bit. For me, we spend a lot of our time on hip hinge and side bend, and understanding how to be effective in our swing, and how to deliver the barrel with force. And I wanted to give you all just an understanding of how context matters in every aspect of hitting. And in that order to be successful, you have to look at the whole picture. So my best advice is to leave you all with whenever you are presented with metrics and data in the game of baseball, always approach it and ask questions around context. What type of pitch was it? Where was the location? The speed? You've got to paint this whole picture. And remember that as much as all the metrics help paint this picture and can really help us in hitting development, it really all boils down to, like Bobby talked about, moving efficiently, being on time with the barrel. Is this person a good hitter? Are we helping them become better hitters or better swingers? And that's kind of my advice of the day.
That's great. Thank you to each of you. And I've got plenty of questions, and I encourage everyone to pop in some questions in the comments as well. The first one I want, and each of you can chime in, but start with Bobby, since your talk kind of triggered this. You talk about tying in that performance part. Depending on the league and the resources available, there's only so much you can measure. Say, like, not every league allows a bat sensor. You're not going to have a HitTrax or Rapsodo on the field, of course. And lower leagues don't have StatCast. So, like, how much should a young hitter think about those metrics, or when it comes to games, or should the performance simply be the results on the field?
So I'm gonna piggyback a little bit off what Matt was talking about with like vertical bat angle, attack angle. So much of that, and I would include this in pre-contact data, is understanding what the pitcher's throwing. And if your entire team is popping up and swinging under the ball, it's probably a high spin guy. You probably need to think down. So that's going to shift your metrics to the actual scenario that you're facing. So, like, if you face Josh Hader, who throws like a -4 pitch ascent angle, then you're going to need to think on top. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to swing under the ball every time. You're going to have to aim 3-4 inches over the ball to try to square it up. And if you face a sinker guy, you're going to need to swing under the ball. So, like, the metrics are just kind of telling us what happened. They're not telling us the process. They're not telling you what you need to think. They're not telling you how to compete. They're giving you information. I spoke at Pitchapalooza like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was talking about hitters should have different bats based on the pitch they're facing. Like, I'm talking end loaded versus hand loaded, and have different swings. Like, if I'm facing a sinker guy, I'm going to tip the barrel up. If I'm facing a high spin guy, I'm going to go flatter, because I need to compete with that pitcher. I don't need data to tell me that. I can just watch the game, and that's going to tell me what's happening. But that's a deeper conversation with, like, paying attention and not like chasing highlights for Instagram. But it's a little different story.
Mm-hmm. And then Andrew, I remember hearing a story a few years ago about a team that scouted a player that they realized he had poor bat speed, but he had very good hand speed, and they realized that in their player development system, there was an inefficiency that they could work on. And you mentioned, coming back to talking about some drills. So someone like that, for instance, what kind of drills would you prescribe, and and how does someone work on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we commonly see a lot of guys that have high hand speed and low bat speed. It mostly has to do with, like, them unhinging their wrists at the wrong time. So a lot of guys might be doing that too early or too late or something. So, like, a great drill is like, our go-to for that is like offset open. So a hitter will, like, open themselves up like 45 degrees. So, like, for a lefty, their feet are kind of like a body are towards like the second baseman, and then the pitcher is still in the same spot, or like tee or front toss. And, like, you'll add like a little bit of turn. and then your goal is to hit line drives to center field. And so like their focus is hitting line drives to center field, and they're basically just trying to keep their bat like through the ball and like their wrist like working through center like as long as they can, basically.
Great. And then Matt, we got a question from the audience, and we'll let you get the first crack at it. How much do hitting coaches focus on center mass when contact happens, such as timing? Is it pitcher center mass is probably the most important measurement to define true torque and control when the top speed of the arm happens and becomes more efficient with his movements? How about for hitters?
I think every hitter is just different and wired differently in how they load. There's some hitters that have a ton of success. I think of someone like Javier Baez, who starts really early and uses this mechanism of really slow load, this high leg kick, and you have other guys who their load and stride is really quick. And so I think it's different for every hitter. I think a lot of the conversations I've tried to have with high school and college guys is asking them, like, when do you start? Why do you start this way? And it's amazing to see how many people have no idea. And like Bobby's talking about, if I'm facing if I'm a high school kid and I'm facing a high school kid that throws 90, another guy that throws 78, and I start at the same time every time, these are conversations I might want to have around, like, when are you starting your swing? What does it look like? How do you start it? And I think it's more about, I think every hitter is different, but I also think we should be having the conversation about, like, when do you start? How do you start? And why do you start then? And I can tell you a story a few years ago, coaching in college, where a pitcher threw so slow. I've never seen anything so slow. In the first 3 innings, hitters could not figure it out. And we were like, okay, no one's going to need to start their first move until the ball is halfway to home. And it's like, you try to figure out for each hitter, what is the cues and what are the things that they can focus on to get on time. And we do spend a good amount of time on that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Another audience question: how can you be rotational with a vertical bat angle? Is that why guys are having oblique issues? This is a different hip rotation involved. Matt, since you were talking about vertical bat angle, I'll let you crack at that first.
Yeah, I guess the term rotational is difficult for me to tackle. I'm not sure that, everyone's definitions, everything in regards to stuff. I think, from an oblique issue standpoint, I think some of that stuff has to do with over rotation and focusing on, like Bobby was talking about hip velocity. Like if you go in and like, I'm going to try to spend all my time on developing hip velocity, and you're a big, strong guy he's not super mobile, like, to me, that's where oblique injuries and things are coming into play more so, depending on if the person is hypermobile or rigid. And so I think, Bobby kind of hit on it a little bit, is that, for me, if we are training to hip velocity and you've got a guy that gets worse or injured by doing that, this is not helping them. And so maybe we're focusing more on stability type things. And again, I've used the K-Vest on hundreds of hitters, and I agree that our biggest and best hitters, like, their hip velocity speeds aren't very good. And so to me, that would be a thing. Again, if I'm a pro player that goes to see a guy and like, hey, hip velocity, you need to have higher hip velocity, and all they work on is rotation of their pelvis and over rotation, to me, that speaks more to the oblique injuries than thinking about vertical bat angle or being rotational. I'm not sure if that's helpful in my answer.
And then Andrew, a question for you. We hear a lot about off the bat exit velocity and launch angle, but how much, every now and then you'll hear coaches talk about trying to impart extra backspin to get the carry. Do you think about spin rate at all, coming off the bat? And, if so, is that something that you can teach?
Yeah, so I think majority of the time there, it's more of something we would target if it's an issue. So a lot of it's going to come back to bat path of the guys hooking a ball or top spinning. We come back to kind of what Matt talked about with like matching the plane of the pitch. So if a pitch is coming in at -6 degrees and your attack angle is at 6 degrees, and if you have like flush contact on that, the ball should come back out at a launch angle of 6. And so those balls would have basically knuckle. And so those would have like very little spin. And so we see kind of negative or like issues once hitters get over like 28 RPMs or 2800 RPMs of spin. So basically they're over spinning balls at that point, and they'll kind of balloon up in the air. So we might target it when that becomes an issue. But for the most part, if they're in a good range, it's not something that we would necessarily address like spin itself. We would more address of like a bat path issue or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And Bobby, we got another question here from Matt Gagne, who our SportTechie editorial director. He's my boss. I should probably get to his question. When I hear about hitters benefiting from different stances against different pitchers, I think of Cal Ripken Jr. and big league guys who, Ripken seemed to have a different stance all the time. But at what age do you start teaching those adjustments versus being good at what you're good at as a teenager, looking to keep moving up in the game?
The game's going to tell you when you need to make a change. If you're not fast enough, if your batting stance can trigger you into more success, you might be lining up your body in a way that's kind of like your groove swing. And Cal Ripken had a billion different stances every single year. Does that mean he didn't have a true grasp on what he was doing, or did he just need to feel something different to allow his natural kind of subconscious to take over and just be athletic? So I highly recommend experimenting and trying new things all the time. If you looked at like your wiffle ball swing when you were 4 years old, that's probably going to be pretty similar to what your swing is when you're in high school and in college. Those core movements are who you are, and that's, changing those patterns is very difficult. So I would recommend experimenting as much as possible. See what you need to think, see what you need to feel. I think the metrics that aren't being captured are what's happening in your head. What are you thinking about? What are you feeling? What's your aim? How are you trying to impact the ball? You look at like outcome-based goals, that if you're trying to hit the ball further, you're probably going to use a leg kick and get a bigger forward move. But do you need to do that? If you're big and strong, you don't need to have that big momentum. So experiment, see what works. There's stories about Bo Bichette and his dad just trying to strike him out when he was young. He would just, pitch like 50 miles an hour from 20 feet away, just trying to strike him out when he was young. And he would go to a no stride drill just because he didn't want his dad to strike him out. And now you see what he does in the big leagues. And everybody's like, oh, you have a no stride with 2 strikes. I've talked to Bo about it. He didn't even know he did it until he was like 14 or 15 and somebody pointed it out. He's like, I'm just trying not to make an out. It's not like somebody told him to do it. He was just competing against his dad. And so the competition is going to dictate that a lot, but there's no harm in trying new things and emulate big leaguers. They're there for a reason. There's in my opinion, there's I call it geometry of the body. There's positions that the best hitters achieve. I think you should be trying to work towards those things because those are the things that create the good swing characteristics with depth, direction, plane, adjustability. Like how you move is going to affect all those things. Just like in golf, you need to understand how your swing path is moving, but experiment, try new things, see what works for you, see what you need to think and feel.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to so much of hitting, of course, is the individual, but are there certain roadblocks, certain like milestones or benchmarks, I should say, that like at each level should be more aware of? Maybe Matt, like high school, college, pro. I mean, are you teaching? How much difference is there? What you're teaching the high schooler versus the pro guy?
Zero, other than again, like the context of it, like be on time with the barrel. Like, I mean, honestly, and for us, like if and moving efficiently, I just think as we get working with younger hitters and high school, college guys, is like, hey, can we move more efficiently to cause more damage and be on? Kind of Andrew talked about the big three. For me, I kind of put them in these buckets of like moving efficiently, some swing mechanics, and then plate discipline. And as the season progresses, especially with college players or pro players in the season, like we're spending a lot of time around plate discipline and how much swing decisions are coming into play. And so it really kind of depends. We're trying to graduate from talking about these swing drills and swing metrics and graduate into plate discipline and swing decisions and things like that. And so I just think we approach every player differently in the sense of, okay, we'd like to move towards that based on, I think everybody's just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. We're down to our final sort of couple minutes here. And I want to give each of you a chance to maybe take about 1 or 2 minutes to answer this. Sort of a lot of, big picture Major League Baseball is at a little bit of a point of reckoning about, the overshifts and exit velocity is being, there's such a premium, and, you're seeing so many few guys being able to hit to the opposite field. There's talk about rule changes as a result. I mean, what should, the best hitters be focusing on? And would you like to see more of an emphasis on, hitting the other way versus just trying to hit for power? Andrew, you want to take the first stab at this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for as far as when it comes to like rule changes or like kind of what we do as coaches, I really want to challenge the hitting community just to be like, let's get better at our job so the game doesn't have to change. These rules have been in place for so long, and I'd love to have the game stay the same. We've kind of seen this shift in players trying to hit for more power, basically because pitching is getting so much better, hitting is getting tougher and tougher. And so like at the end of the day, we're trying to score runs. And so now like guys can do that with one swing instead of having to put together a team effort. But I'd really like to see hitters focus on being complete hitters, hitting the ball hard, being able to do it to all fields, be able to make good swing decisions, have good plate discipline, take more walks, do stuff like that to be a complete hitter. And a lot of the stuff we're measuring, like kind of like Matt and Bobby talk about, like we're not looking at one metric at a time. Like we're taking all this information to get a holistic view of a hitter to then like help them to be the most successful, to see like what can provide the lowest hanging fruit to help them be successful.
Mm-hmm. Bobby?
Best hitters are doing just fine. The best hitters are still performing. The batting averages are up. Go tell Vlad Jr. he needs to make an adjustment. Being more complete, I guess, hitting's not easy. I'm not trying to say hitting's easy, but if somebody opens up the whole field to you, I was in New England for a long time. Jackie Bradley Jr. was a guy who was like really, really streaky. And when they would shift him and he took his base hit to left field, it's amazing how that makes you feel better. And it's amazing how when you feel better, you play better. And when you let the ball travel and you control trajectory and you find the top of the ball, how much that translates across to your other at-bats. So I would say take your hits if they give them to you. So much of the power stuff was because of money and the business of baseball, and guys were trying to get paid. Can't fault them for that. Batting average as a metric, as a stat, I think is valid, and a lot of people don't think that. You feel better when you get hits. That's if you've been in the box, you know that. So the best hitters are just fine. It's I did a Twitter video recently about the floor and ceiling and how the pitcher's floor has gotten higher, and hitters do need to do a better job competing, but best hitters are just fine. They're not the ones that need to make the adjustments.
Sounds good. And Matt, bring us home.
Yeah, I would just kind of expand on what Bobby's telling you. Like the best hitters are doing that, and so I think the word that he said that stuck out to me the most was compete. Like there's times you've got to lay down a bunt on the opposite field or pull, go oppo on a shift to get that momentum going, to break that up, to feel good. And when enough hitters do that, I think it's going to help some of those guys in the middle of the road. But the top half guys, they're doing just fine, and they don't need to change. It's really the guys who are really struggling or trying to find ways. Those guys have got to find ways to compete, and part of that's going to be drag bunting and going opposite field and doing whatever they can to get on base, to feel good, to get to that place, because we didn't talk about it much on this thing, but the game is so much mental. These 162 game schedules and seasons, it's like you can get beat down really quickly. And you've got guys. I did a study one time about Mike Trout. There was times he went 0 for 19 and won MVP MVP those years. So what does the slump look like, and what does it look like mentally? And I think we've got a lot of kids nowadays who go 0 for 8 in the weekend, and like they've changed their whole swing, and they freak out. And so just competing, feeling good, getting your mind right. I think that can help a lot at the major league level for the guys that need it.
Mm-hmm.
Be unaccepting of striking out. Striking out's terrible. At all levels of the game. I see kids like youth, high school, they're like strikeout's not just another out. Stop doing it.
Wow, a very controversial remark to throw in as we're closing up. No, I agree with you. We could go on for a long time, but unfortunately, we need to keep on moving with the program. Andrew, Bobby, Matt, thank you very, very much for your time and insights. And I'll turn it over to Dan for a few housekeeping notes.